So last week I showed this mini album and I've had several people asking for a tutorial. So this is the tutorial for a 6.5 by 8.5 mini album. Hey everybody, this is Debbie from Project 39 Mini Albums, and I am going to show you how to make this mini album. Now I've made several others throughout the month, so you will be able to see the mini album and follow along this tutorial. The tutorial, I don't give the measurements in the tutorial. I do give a cutting guide in my coffee shop. There is a slight charge for it, so if that's something you're interested in, head over to there. It's not necessary. You don't need it. You can just follow along with the tutorial and either write things down or stop the video and cut when I say you're going to need a certain size piece. I also will use the same tutorial for several other mini albums throughout the month. If a little bit about me, first of all, thank you for joining along. I mean, when I say a little bit, we're going to go quick. I live, travel, and craft in my RV. I enjoy making tutorials and sharing them with people. I just offer the cutting guide really as an accommodation to people who like a written list. And since it takes me a little bit of time, I just charge, like I say, a nominal fee. I am not going to show you all the tools and supplies because I've done that in other videos, and as well, in my coffee shop there is a free file telling you what I use. The glue, the scoreboard, paper trimmer, you know, if it's available, I show you what it is. So if you're interested, go check that out. My coffee shop is linked below. All right, without any further ado, we are going to do the tutorial. Now there is a walkthrough, a detailed walkthrough on my channel for this, and as we go through after we're done, then I'll do another walkthrough showing you it decorated with different paper. All right, let's really get started. All right, so the first thing I do is I start with my chipboard pieces. I have two that are 6.5 by 8.5 and one that is 2.25 by 8.5. First thing I'm going to do is, and as you can see, I put double-sided permanent adhesive. I get mine from scrapbook.com. You could, I use a roll, but you could use just the sheets if you want. I use a roll because I do a lot of mini albums, but if you are not doing that many mini albums, then the sheets would work fine for you. Now, I happen to have a sheet. Now, this was 12 by 24 of cardstock. I picked this up from Hobby Lobby. To be honest, it's not my favorite. I wouldn't run out and go get it. And the reason it's not my favorite is because I don't know what the thickness is, but it's very thick. I don't have the cover sheet that came on it. It seems like it's more than 65 pounds. But it does save me time. Now, if you don't have that, you can take two 8.5 by 11 sheets. I'm just going to grab two black ones because it's right here. And to be honest, I am all out of my craft color. So if you don't have that, you can just add double-sided tape on the side of one. I use a 1/4 inch tape and then make one longer piece. So that is the alternative for that. Now I also use my cutting measurements on the self-healing mat that I use. This is 18 by 24. It was a 24 by 12, as I said, but I cut it down. So 18 by 24. It's still a little bit too long, but number one, I can't cut it on my trimmer, and number two, it's not going to bother me. I'm going to find where the center is, so I put it here on my table, and it doesn't have to be exact, but the center is here at the 12, and then since my spine is 2.25, I will mark exactly where that is. Take my T-square, put it at the edge of where my spine piece should be, and then here I eyeball it for top and bottom. And to be honest, if it's not perfectly straight, it's not that big of a deal. All right, once I get the spine piece on, and I know it's almost hard to see because it's the same color, I take my 1/4 inch double-sided permanent adhesive and put one on each side of that chipboard piece. And then this is where I'm going to do a real good job of burnishing, because you won't be able to get to it again. So I'll burnish that down, peel off the backing. I'm using a Dress My Craft #2 non-stick bone folder. It's got a little bevel at the end, and as you could see, it was easy to peel off the backing on my tape. All right, now that that's down, I'm going to take my pieces of chipboard, and again, these are 6.5 by 8.5. So I will go ahead and peel off the backing, and I will go ahead and put this down. So now I'm going to put this down not exactly 1/4 inch away, a little bit less than 1/4 inch away. A little more than 1/8, a little less than 1/4, so it's actually probably 3/16 inch if you want an exact measurement. Peel off the backing on the other one. And yes, there are some areas here, since I had to piece this together, that actually doesn't have double-sided adhesive, so I'll add some glue there. And then I'll do the same thing over here. I'll put it about 3/16 inch from the edge of our spine piece, making sure the top and bottom is lined up. Being a little more generous than normal just because this cardstock is very thick. Alrighty, I'm going to turn this over. And now, so some of this double-sided adhesive is exposed. It's okay, it'll peel up off the mat, but if you're using a paper surface, you might want to cover just this part of it up again. All right, I'll burnish, and then I'll find where the edge of the chipboard is and burnish with my bone folder, just to help in the process of training the paper. See, it sticks a little bit, but it's okay. So now you can see where the edge of this is. It doesn't matter. I'm going to turn it over, use some scissors, and just cut across. I'm going to stay 1/8 inch away from this very corner. More is better than less. If you have less, then your chipboard will show. It's not a big deal with this craft colored cardstock, but if you were using maybe white paper to cover, but then all you have to do is just add this to the corner, and nobody will ever see if you cut it too short. Now, I usually don't do this because I trust my glue, but again, this cardstock is pretty weldy. I don't know. It's pretty thick. So I'm going to add a little bit of score tape to each of the outside edges. If you want, you could add it to the chipboard as well, but I'm not worrying that much about it. And I'll burnish that. To be honest, the double-sided adhesive is going to help hold the glue. The glue is what I trust for permanent adhesion. The double-sided adhesive really is just sort of a temporary measure. All right, I'll peel off that backing as well, which is now sticking to everything. Okay, let me show you something. So I have my glue, and I'm using the Art Glitter Glue, and I've got it in a glass jar upside down. I have the pin off of it, and I have a wet paper towel. It's not that wet, it needs to be wetter. I add a magnet to here so my pins will stick to it, so I can always find the pins, and at the end of a crafting session or at the end of the day, I will go ahead and put the pins on just in case that paper towel dries out, which it probably will because it's real cold where I am right now. I'm in Vermont, and it's cold, so the heat's on, so it's sort of dry in here. So I laid some glue along the outside edge of the chipboard just because I feel like it's going to help soften the fibers in the paper. And then I'm going to just zigzag across one edge, and then I'll grab my bone folder. And again, I'm using this beveled edge. I'll find my paper and start folding it up. I want it to be like an L. I want it to be straight up. So I'm pushing down where I put that glue along the edge, and the glue is going to seep out a little, but that's okay. Go back and forth several times, and then I'll pull this with my fingers and take my bone folder and just go along the top of it so it helps sort of crease it right there. And I go back and forth several times, and then I pull down this center piece first and then burnish. Now I did get glue on my bone folder, so I'm just wiping it off. And then burnish a little bit more. Let the glue distribute and make sure that we adhere where that double-sided adhesive is. I'll do the same for this long side. Oh, I already put that down, so I'll go and zigzag. I feel like using wet adhesive gives the paper and cart and chipboard an opportunity for the fibers to intermingle and lock together. I feel like tape will just sit on the surface. So that's why I always trust my mini albums now in the construction to the wet glue. I mean, like I say, I'll use the double-sided adhesive just to have it dry immediately, or not dry, adhere immediately, but I trust the wet glue to make it permanent. And after all, I mean, we're making what should be an heirloom, and we want it to last forever. Now, it's not to say in 10 years they might come out with a glue that's even better, but you know, you use what you have. You change if you need to. Some people have noticed in the beginning I used the double-sided adhesive until I found a glue that would adhere permanently. All right, we'll do the short sides too. And I did tests with the glue. Like I took, not a whole mini album, just covers and pages that I made just for a test, and put them in my car. And I live in Florida, but I traveled to a cold climate where there's snow. I left it in my car. I was going to do it for a year. It was not even 9 months, and then I guess I sold the car. I don't know, something happened. But in the meantime, I sort of felt like that was a good test. If you can leave a mini album in your car where the conditions change, then it's probably going to last in your house, even if you put it in your attic. I don't think conditions change as much as it does in a car. All right. Now I'm going to take my bone folder and go along the edge because I think it makes a nice presentation, but to be honest, it probably doesn't do anything. All right, now I'll take this part of my bone folder, so it's a blunt V point, but the sides are rounded, and it's perfect to go in this channel. So I go back and forth several times to get this top piece to adhere to the bottom piece, because that's where we have that double-sided adhesive. And I will also go in that channel and fold it. And we'll do the same for this side. And fold it. And when I fold it, make sure it's nice and straight as well. Okay, so there we've got our cover. Just going to let that sit, and we're going to work on the hinge. Okay, now that we've made the cover, we're going to do the hinge. Now, if you've not done a hinge, don't be scared. We're going to do it step by step, and we'll do it together. So the hinge measures 8 by 11, 11 inches across, 8 up and down. I have the 11-inch side at the top of my scoreboard. I'm going to read out the measurements as I do them, but here's a little secret. Maybe you can see I've got all these little lines here on my scoreboard. I generally do 4 or 5, usually 5 pages with a 3/8 of an inch in between. So since I do that, I have, and my pages are going to have 1/2 an inch for the hinge. So I'll have 1/2 inch hinge, 1/2 inch hinge, 3/8 gusset, 1/2, 1/2, 3/8. So it's easy for me to remember. I mean, I've done it so long that I could do it without even that. But if it's something that would help you. Now, you might want to change the size of the hinge every once in a while, or size of the gusset, but for the most part, that's what I do. So anyhow, with the 11-inch side at the top, I'm going to start scoring at 2. Then I'll score at 2 1/2, 3, 3 3/8, 3 7/8, 4 3/8, 4 3/4, 5 1/4, 5 3/4, 6 1/8, 6 5/8, 7 1/8, 7 1/2, 8, 8 1/2. And so that's it. So I have 5 1/2-inch hinges with a gusset. Hinge, hinge, gusset, hinge, hinge, gusset. So since I have 5 hinges, there's a 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. In between that is a score line. I'm going to turn this over, and the bumpy side is going to be facing up, and I'm going to fold it on that 1/2 inch line in between the 2 1/2 inch pieces. So I'm going to fold it on what is actually the second score line. And I'm going to take my bone folder and burnish it. Then I'm going to skip a line, and fold at that 3rd line. So skip, skip, fold. Just keep that in your head, and it'll make it easy. Skip, skip, fold again. And when I'm folding, incidentally, I'm making sure my sides are even. If you get a wonky hinge, everything's wonky. If this doesn't come out right, that's all right. Chalk it up to experience and do it again. So we'll skip, skip, fold, and then one more time at that last set of hinges, skip, skip, fold, and burnish. So now I've got it just sitting on my table. You can sort of see where my little mountains are. So I'm going to hold it down and sort of loosely. My fingers up at the top can pull my paper, but I'll hold it with my thumbs. So I'm going to pull it, and that first area that we scored is going to come up to like a mountain. As soon as it comes up high enough, whoops, I'm going to grab a hold of it, and with my fingers just burnish it. Bend it back and forth and just burnish it. So there is the start of a hinge. We're just training the paper at this point. Now I'm going to do that same with the second one, and because that's the only ones that we burnished, it's more likely to go up. And we'll go and do all 5 of those hinges. I'm just finger burnishing. Now, some people have that tactile thing. They don't like touching the paper, and especially if you're using this craft cardstock, it's sort of itchy. You can grab your bone folder. I just find it easy to do with my fingers. Now make sure when you're folding everything's straight. Don't make a fold that's not there. So there we are, and you can see a little bit more. It's a little more pronounced where our hinges are. Now if I keep my gussets down on the table and pull my hinges together, and then I'll pull them all facing me. So there's our set of hinges. I'm going to take my bone folder and burnish all 5 of these at once. As you can see, I turn my hand over. And then push them all away from me, keeping those gussets down on the table. And burnish again. So again, we're just training the paper. Now I'm going to turn it over so the pointy side's facing down, and I'm going to start adding glue. So I use the fine point glue tip, although in this case it doesn't matter really. And I'm going to sort of open this up, and I'm going to zigzag from about 1/4 inch away from the side. I'm going to zigzag all across one side of the hinge. I'll stop when there's 1/4 inch to the end. And just to make sure I get it along the top, I'm going to just take a bead of glue and go along the top. I'm going to now turn this upside down. Glue won't hit your surface if you were neat about it. And I'm going to pinch it and distribute that glue. We'll use the bone folder in a little while, but I want to make sure that the bottom, this whole hinge is going to get stuck together. So there we go. You can see what it looks like on the underside. And we're going to do the second one. Zigzag. You don't want so much glue that it seeps out, but you want enough to get it to stick. And you see that one bead of glue is about 1/8 inch away from the edge, so it's not going to mess up my table. Now, if I feel like I'm being messy, I'll just put something else down and work on it. And you can see in a couple spots, it was trying to come out, but it didn't. So I will do number 3. Go along the edge. Distribute. I might even use, I have small fingernails. I might even use my fingernails at the base of this hinge just to make sure it's stuck together real well. Depends on how the paper's fighting me now. As I said, this craft cardstock, it's gotta be maybe 80 pounds. So I do have to fight it a little more than if I were to use a true 65-pound weight cardstock. Alrighty. And one more. See, that's the thing about living in an RV. We do travel, and sometimes we're out in the middle of nowhere, which, you know, that's wonderful. But that means there's no stores nearby. Now, we do get our mail, especially if we stay at a campground. A lot of campgrounds will allow us to get mail, so I can always get deliveries. No, I can't always. Sometimes I can get deliveries. All right, so my hinges now are facing straight up. Here's the bottom. It looks nice and neat and pretty. I'm going to do what I did before and pull them all towards me and burnish. If any glue seeps out and gets on your bone folder, clean it up. But I do know the good thing about this craft cardstock is it does absorb the glue really well. Now I'm pushing them all away from me and burnishing again. I like that they're all even. This paper is not wonky. It's all straight. Everything is straight. Okay, now that we've got that done, I'm going to grab my book, which has had a chance to dry, and I'm going to just figure out where this is going to go. Now, you want to, as much as you can, center it on the page. I'm all right if I go over a little to the right because I know my inside front cover is going to have a real thick feature. So if I go a little to the right, I'll make allowances for that. But the important thing is to know where your channels are, and when you put your hinge on, it's equidistant from the top of the book to the top of the hinge, and from the bottom of the hinge to the bottom of the page. I have about 1/4 inch. If you feel like you need to draw a line with a pencil, you can do that. I don't personally like to do that because it's hard to erase it, but whatever works for you. All right, so again, I'm going to figure out where it's going to go. Now, if you're not sure of yourself, you can hold this down and add glue here, but I'm pretty confident I can figure out where I wanted to put it. I'm holding it in my hand pretty loosely, because I want this to bend, because I want to be able to add glue to this channel in between our hinges. It just naturally wants to follow that line. I'm not going to go all the way to the bottom or all the way to the top, but that way it helps give us a good running start. I will add glue. I will zigzag it up and down the 4 channels that you see. Now, since it's important that we get a good stick, I'm looking for spots that I feel like need a little more glue, and I'll just add it there. All right, now I'm gonna, again, holding it above, it's hovering over where I want it to be. I'm gonna look and make sure it is straight on my page. I'm just gonna put it down. I'm not gonna push it yet. Maybe I'll sort of peek and see if this area is nice and parallel, which it is. I moved it ever so slightly. Okay, so again, it's just sitting there. You want to work fairly quickly, but obviously I can talk enough to show you. So we're going to start in the middle. Since there's an even number of hinges, you can pick one. I'm going to start from the top and sort of spreading open those hinges, go to the bottom, and from the bottom to the top. Then I'll go over and move this one hinge to the left, over to the right, and sometimes you'll feel that whole set of hinges move. I'll do the next one and burnish, then I'll go over 2 and burnish, and then I'll go to the last one and burnish, and this last one and burnish. Now I'm going to move those all over one direction, and I will burnish. I want to get a good stick here, so I'm pushing fairly hard. Now I'll move this and burnish. I'm using the rounded part of my bone folder. Then I'll make sure all of these hinges are standing up. Now, it's important that over time you burnish these hinges so they move, because you want the pages to move. All right, so now since I didn't put glue on this flap, this flap, I'm going to go ahead and add glue. So again, I'm not going to put it up in the first 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to go down a 1/4 of an inch and zigzag and put it on the paper, and then I don't mean to get it in that channel, and then on the chipboard, stop about a 1/4 of an inch from the bottom, and then I'm going to put a little bit in this channel, not a heck of a lot, because that sort of sneaks out, and then I'm going to add another zigzag of glue on the right side of the chipboard. Then I'll go around the outside perimeter of my little flap, and then I'll zigzag some more. Okay, then I'll push this down, and I'll take my bone folder and go from the top to the middle, from the bottom to the middle, and then burnish. Now I'm going to go in that channel, maybe using this rounded part of the bone folder. And if you don't have a bone folder that has that, you might have one of those thin bone folders. You can just put this whole thing down. Just make sure you don't use anything pointy that's going to cut into the paper. And I'm going to go back and forth, I don't know, 20, 30 times, because each time I'm pushing a little harder, training this paper. Now eventually I'm going to hold the cover and sort of close it, bring it towards me, and that will allow me to burnish and get this top piece of cardstock to match up with that bottom piece of double-sided adhesive. All right, and then I'll go ahead and burnish here. Now, that's okay. This came up a little bit, but that's all right. We're not going to worry so much about it because we're going to work it again in a little bit. All right, now we're going to do the same with this side. And I'll zigzag 1/4 of an inch from the top all the way on my chipboard. I'll put some in this channel. I won't put it inside that channel where the double-sided adhesive is because that will work for itself. And then zigzag on the right side of that channel. And then go around and burnish from the top to the middle, from the bottom up. And burnish that, go in the channel. If you see glue seeping out, go ahead and clean it up. I'll move the cover towards me and then burnish. All right, now I'm going to let it dry flat. I know if you let it close, this is going to adhere real well to the double-sided adhesive, but it's okay the way it is. I'd rather it dry flat because otherwise you might get like a little bubble on these sides. Not that it's the end of the world, but if we let it dry flat while we're making the pages, we're in good shape. So now let's get to making the base pages. Our base pages are going to be 6 by 8, so you'll need to cut for each page a piece that is 6 by 8.5. So total, you'll need 10 pieces that are 6 by 8.5. With the 8.5 side at the top of the scoreboard, we're going to score each one at 1/2 inch. So this is great for using 8.5 by 11 paper, but if you don't have that, you're just using 12 by 12, that's fine too. It's just minimal amount of extra paper that you cut out and throw out. Okay, so they both have a score line at the top. I'm going to take my scissors and just miter each one. So I'm just going to sort of let it rest in that score line and cut off just a little bit. That's what I mean by mitering. So we'll do that to all 10 pieces. I'm just going to show you with 2 right now. And of course, toss those out. And then I'll grab my bone folder and I'm going to fold this down and burnish it. Does it matter if you fold, like when you first burnish, you're going to have a bump on one side, indentation on the other? Does it matter? Not really. If I can, I fold with the indentation at the top, I'll fold that. But, you know, ultimately it doesn't really matter. All right, so we have 2 pieces that both have a little flap on them. I'm going to take one and turn it upside down. So here the flap is facing down, here the flap is facing up. I'm going to take the top part that doesn't have a flap and match them like that. So here's the flap on this side, and the flap is facing towards me on this piece. So we're going to glue it, and we're going to glue it and have that flap showing on the outside. Why do I do that? Because when I have hidden pocket pages, if I don't have anything inside, there's nothing that you would get something hung up in, and you're going to cover it with paper. Now, if that bothers you, then just put it on the inside and do it that way. That is quite all right. To be honest, I've been known to do it both ways. I'm going to make sure that this is even on my surface, so we have the bottom is even on both of these. I'll take this flap and have it open and zigzag and fold and burnish. All right, and I'm going to do the same with this. So we already have it attached here. I'm going to turn it over and make sure my sides are even. Open this flap and add some glue, fold it over and burnish. So what we've just made is the first page, which is actually a tube. Now, I've already done the other 4 pages, so we've got 5 of our pages, all 5 pages ready to rock and roll. I'm going to pull in again my book, and I'm going to start from the back. Before I add pages, I'm gonna, since this has settled for a while, I'm gonna burnish it again and go in this channel and make sure this open. Fold the flaps one way, fold on the other, and just work them so they move back and forth. Now I'm gonna start at number 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to dry fit it. So without any glue, I'm going to see how well it fits. And these fit pretty well. Now dry fit it, because if for some reason it does not fit, it's a little bit tight, then all you have to do is cut a little bit, like about 1/4 of an inch, not even, maybe 1/4 of an inch from the top of my hinge to about halfway, and just cut off a little piece, and that'll help it go in. But I'm not going to worry about it because they fit on nicely. I'm going to add glue on the back side of the hinge, keeping it towards the top, maybe the top 2/3, and I'll do it for the other side. Now you have to be careful you don't get glue all over your hands. Have a towel handy. And then, so I've got my flap. It doesn't matter, but I like to have it all consistent. So the flap is showing here on the top. And I'm going to just put this on and push it down. But then I'm going to lay it to its side and pull it a little bit to the right, so it is not right against the bottom of the hinge when it's all glued. I want a little bit of space showing. I have a little less than 1/8 of an inch showing. And I'm making sure this bottom area is parallel to the bottom of the book. The top should be parallel to the top, and then the side is parallel as well. And then once I get it down the way I want, I'll go ahead and burnish and just let that glue distribute on the front and on the back. So there we have our first page in. Let's add some more glue. We'll do a couple of these together, but I won't bore you with putting them all in. Zigzag on the top, keeping it to the top 2/3, maybe the top half. Depends on how heavy-handed you are with the glue. And then again, I'm making sure this top tab is at the top, but if it's not the worst thing in the world. Push it down, pull it back a little bit. Make sure this is even with the page we just put in before, and burnish. And we'll go ahead and do one more page, and then the other 2 I'll do without you. Now, I don't always use hinges when I'm making my books. I just feel like they're very secure. And to be honest, it's a habit. It's just how I'm used to doing it. Are there other ways? There absolutely are, and I've used other ways. But this book is going to have a hinge. All right, so I'll pull it off a little bit. And burnish. All right, I'm going to put the other 2 pages in, and then I'm going to start, and we're going to start putting in features for the pages. Then we'll go through and decorate it. Okay, so the first feature we're going to add is on the inside front cover. We are going to have a waterfall. There's different ways of doing a waterfall. A lot of times I'll do just a small, sort of skinny little closure, but in this case, I added a whole flap. So I used a 4x6 cut apart I put a magnet inside so you see the hole cut apart. And in this case, the flap is underneath that front. I don't always do it that way, but that's how we did it on this one. So this will open, and then I've got 7 other pieces of this waterfall and room here even to put another photo. Now you may notice there is a slight border around it. It's maybe 1/16 of an inch, maybe 1/8 of an inch top and bottom. So when we will construct it, and then you'll add plain paper to the bottom and then put this on top. I mean, you could put it right on there without any plain paper, but I just felt it gave a little room for some color. The other thing is we have a base. Well, let me tell you the measurements. So the pages are, you'll need a base piece that is 6 1/4 by 8 1/2. Now we're probably going to cut, we are going to cut maybe 1/2 inch, but we're going to wait till the end to do that. Then you'll need 8 pieces that are 6 1/4 by 4 3/4. So we'll score those in a second. And then you'll need the bottom flap that is 6 1/4 by 5 1/2. So we're going to take our scoreboard. Let's move this out of the way now that you've seen what it is we're making. This base piece, we don't score at all. But all 8 pieces that are 6 1/4 by 4 3/4, we're going to score at 1/2 inch with the 4 3/4 side at the top. And then our, and I've already done the other ones. I've already scored those. So we have 8 pieces all scored. And the closure flap is 6 1/4 by 5, 6 1/4 by 5 1/2. And we're going to score that. Of course, I have to cut it correct because I didn't. And they're all 6 1/4, so you can add 4 by 6 photos without a problem. Okay, not that one, this one. 6 1/4, 5 1/2. We're going to score it with the 5 1/2 side at the top at 1/2 inch. Okay, so for these pieces, we're going to fold and not miter. Do not miter waterfalls, but fold all 8 pieces and burnish on the score line. So 8 waterfalls. I mean, there's a lot of room for a lot of photos right here on that front page. So if you're going to do a family book, Christmas book, even a baby book, lots of room for photos. So hopefully you'll take this tutorial and use it with different paper. All right, so now we're going to take our first piece and we're going to take one of our waterfall pieces. I'll add glue to the top, and you want to put it at the top, matching it to the very top and the sides, and burnish. And then the next piece you're going to do, you will put it and snug it up right next to the bottom of that last piece that you just put on. So go right up here, just butt it up to the top because we know that one's straight, so this one's going to be straight as well, as long as your paper's straight. And then burnish. So I'm going to do that to all 8 pieces. And I'll go in fast motion. All right, now that I've got that, I'm going to turn it over, and on this base piece, I'm going to burnish it. Now I've also realized that, I knew this was going to happen, that when you put this down, that bottom piece is going to be more than 1/2 inch. So I'm simply going to make a line from that last waterfall, and I will cut that off so it looks more consistent. And then our final piece, the one that is 6 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I'm going to take this, so we have all of the waterfall pieces, turn it over, take this piece, and add it to the bottom, making sure it's centered on there. I'm just using my surface just to make sure everything's lined up. I'll put that down and burnish. So it'll fold like that. But to keep it together, what we need is a magnet. So I'm going to go ahead and get out my magnets. I have magnets that I use from Total Element Magnets. They make all sorts of different magnets, not really just for scrapbooking, for all sorts of uses. Now these ones that I'm going to use actually have adhesive on it. The adhesive is fairly thick. I would rather do it without the adhesive, but I just have this size available. I have turned on a lot of people to these. I'm trying to figure out where the center is. To these magnets. They're a great price. They generally don't have adhesive on, but they work real well. They're very strong and very thin. So I'm going to put that down. And usually they don't have the adhesive. Usually I'm using double-sided adhesive. I went and grabbed a non-adhesive magnet. I'm adding a drop of glue right in the center of that one so I can see where it's going to, where I need to put the corresponding magnets. I'll add a couple of pieces of little score tape. If I wasn't so lazy, I could have grabbed one larger piece, but I'll burnish that on, peel off the backing. I'm going to add some paper here, and then there we go. So there is our waterfall. As I said, we're not going to put it in right away because we're going to add a base piece of paper to the inside front cover, and then we will add that. So as far as elements for the front of page 1, there really isn't anything. We're just going to add a piece of pattern paper and then a sticker on the bottom that will be a tuck spot. So there's no elements to do. But let's go over to the back of page 2 and front of page 3. So they are flaps with magnets on both of the pages. So they're real simple. I mean, all we're going to do is take 4 pieces of cardstock that measures 4 3/4 by 4 1/4. and put them in the scoreboard and score it 1/2 inch with the 4 3/4 side at the top. Now I add the magnets and everything once I add the pattern paper, so that will be in the decorating portion of the tutorial. But we can, whoops, fold and burnish on the score lines. And the reason I did this for this page is, number one, it made an interesting element, but number two, the paper collection I used, the Harvest collection, had a lot of 4x4 cut aparts. So I wanted to utilize them. If you don't have 4x4 cut aparts, you could make this for a 4x3 cut apart. So therefore you would make this 3 5/8 by 4 1/4. But what we're going to do for this, because I do have 4x4 cut aparts, is we're going to add one to the top left side, right over to the edge of the page and to the top of the page. One to the bottom right side. Now, in this case, I matched it up with the bottom of the page, but you don't have to. And for the front of page 2, the first one I put over to the top right side of the page. And the bottom left of the page. Sometimes when I'm designing the book, I let the paper help me with the design, and in this case, like I said, they were the 4x4 cut aparts, and I wanted to utilize them. So you do use a lot of magnets. This is where the total element magnets come in. I am using, what size are these? 1/4 inch. I'm just going to do one for you right now. So I'm going to put it on for the bottom flap on the back of page 1. Going to go about 1/2 inch over from the edge of the page, take off the backing, add my magnet, add a dot of glue to it so I know where it's going to match up. I have to clean that magnet off. It drives me crazy if I have glue on the magnet. And then add that. And then fold it over. And then sometimes, especially like now, where I'm not going to decorate the book right away, I will add a little bit of tape to cover it. That just will make sure it stays in place until I can add the decorative paper to it, and that way it won't come off. So I'll go ahead and put magnets on, and then we will go ahead and decorate that. All right, so now we're going to do the back of page 2. So what this is it's a flap with a pocket. I could have decorated it a little better, but for this one, we'll see what I can do different. It's a large side-loading pocket. I wanted it big enough that you could actually put a photo here, and then, of course, a photo there. So it's just a flap with a pocket. Let's go ahead and do that. So for the flap, you need a piece that is 6 inches by 8 inches. And we're simply going to put it on the scoreboard with the 6-inch side at the top and score it 1/2 inch. Let's go ahead and do the pocket. So that is 4.5 by 9. With the 9-inch side, we'll do that. 9-inch side at the top, score at 1/2 inch. And 8.5. And then rotate it, and with the 4.5-inch side at the top, score it 1/2 inch. So since this is a pocket, we're going to miter. Let's see if I can show it in such a way. Okay, so there's a score line there and a score line there. We're going to cut across where those two score lines intersect, and do that for that. And then we'll go ahead and miter the top. And for the 6 by 8, we'll just miter at that 1/2 inch tab. So let us grab the book, and we're going to work with this first. Well, first we're going to fold and burnish on the score line. Oops, there goes my bone folder. And we're going to put this one down first. I did write the measurements, and I'm erasing it now. And I'll go ahead and put this to the right-hand side of the back of page 2. So line it up with the page, not the hinge. And I'm going to burnish that real well, and then open this up and burnish it here also. And then let's fold and miter on the score lines for our little pocket. So I will add glue first. To the longest part. I say the bottom of the pocket, but it's actually the side. Make sure this page will still close. All right, and then just to make sure that if for some reason I don't cover this whole page with pattern paper, I'm going to add a piece of packing tape. You could just use a regular tape. I'm going to put it along that tab. Made it a little bit too big, so I'll cut that down. And I'll just burnish that in. So that way, if you put something in, it won't get hung up here, because there's 2 layers of a tab there. Then I'll add glue to the top and bottom of this, the tabs on the pocket. Pinch it and push it down and burnish. So there we go with that. So a decorative element, you could actually add a corner rounder here to this. But that way it gives you room to put a photo here, and then you've got room in the pocket to put things, and then room, of course, on the inside of the flap and the outside of the flap, unless you leave it alone. So that is the back of page 2. The front of page 3 is simply a flap with a pocket. I did add these little pockets and tuck spots when I did the decorating, so we're not going to worry about that now. but a flap with a pocket. So for that, you'll need 2 pieces of cardstock. The flap is going to be 4.5 by 8, and the pocket is 4.5 by 4 3/4. So we'll go ahead and score the 4 3/4. 4.5 by 4 3/4. For that, you'll need a piece 4.5 by 8 with a 4.5 side at the top. Score at 1/2 inch. And then you'll need a piece that is 5 by 4 5/8 with the 5 inside at the top. Score at 1/2 inch and at 4 1/2. Rotate, and with the 4 5/8 side at the top, score at 1/2 inch. So since this is a pocket, we will cut across those score lines and miter. So cut across the score lines and miter. And let's go ahead and miter at that 1/2 inch tab. All right, let's fold and burnish. Let's do that. I put all my tools away, like in between each camera session, because otherwise my desk gets crowded. So I like to clean up, and not just when I'm filming, even when I'm just crafting. I like to clean up because I have such a small space. Otherwise it'll get pretty crowded. Okay, so I've got the tab here on the right. I'm going to take the bottom and add glue just to the bottom here and line that up with the bottom piece here. Now I made this a little bit different from the other one because I wanted to have a pocket that you could add a 4x4 cut apart. I just thought that made sense. And because it's a pocket and I don't know that I'll put paper to go all the way to the bottom, I will add a little piece of packing tape. And again, it doesn't have to be this whole big honky piece of tape. It could just be a 1/2 inch piece of cello tape. And then we'll glue the side tabs as well. To me, it's easier to assemble this before I put it in the book rather than put it in the book and then try to assemble. I really have to burnish this piece because this cardstock is really, really tough. All right, now I'll glue to the tab and put it in the book. I'm going to turn it on its side just so it's easy for me to work with. Make sure it's matching up to the side, and then I'll open it and finish burnishing it. Now we will have a magnet. I'll put the magnet here in the bottom just because there might be a lot of things going on at the top. I mean, you could put it in the center if you wanted to. And then here I'll put a magnet here to correspond with that. So that is it for the front of page 3. All right, so for the back of page 3 and front of page 4, we're doing the same thing, so we'll treat them the same. It's just a side loading pocket tucked into the center. It gives you opportunity for adding if you have any of these gorgeous cut-aparts, but even if you don't, it gives you room to put a lot of photo mats. So let us start. We will need 2 pieces of cardstock that are 3 1/4 by 9. 3 1/4 by 9, 2 pieces, same size. We will, let's start this way. We'll put it with the 9 inside at the top of the scoreboard, and we will go ahead and score it at 1/2 inch, and 8.5, and then rotate it so the 3 1/4 sides at the top, and now score at 1/2 inch. So do that with both of them. Oops, 1/2 inch, 8.5, rotate, and score at 9. Okay, and yes, we're going to miter. We are going to miter both of these, so we have an X created by those score lines. Let's just cut across that for both pieces, and then we'll miter the sides slightly. Do that for this. I'll miter the sides, and then cut right across that X. And there we go. So I will burnish on our fold lines, fold and burnish. And so we have 2 long pockets. I'm going to add glue to the long side, and we'll put that in first. So I'm just going to line it up with the page. Don't put it on the hinge, put it on the page. And again, I'm going to take some tape. We'll just take a piece of cellophane tape and put it there. Add glue to our tab. Fold that over and burnish. And we'll do the same for the front of page 4. And there's going to be a couple of different ways to decorate it. In one book, I added stickers. In another book, well, in the book I showed you, I just used some, I guess they were 2x2 cut aparts, and that worked out nicely, sort of to balance it. One I put up high, one I put low, and it just balanced it out. And I'll add glue to these tabs, and that's it as far as adding the features to these 2 pages. Decorating it is going to be just as easy. I'll burnish that, burnish that. And voila, we're done with the back of page 3, front of page 4. The back of page 4 is going to be a stacked pocket. So we just have 3 pockets, or actually we're adding 2 pockets. It looks like there's 3. So we're going to make that, and aren't these pages simple to make? So for that we'll need 2 pieces. One that is 3.5 by 7, and one that is 3 by 7. 3.5 by 7, 3 by 7. Get out our handy dandy scoreboard. So for the 3.5 by 7, we are going to score it at 1/2 inch with the 7-inch side at the top and at 6.5. And let's go ahead and score it at 1/2 inch. Now for the 3 by 7, we're just going to score this one at 1/2 inch and at 6.5 with the 7-inch side at the top. Let's miter, but don't go crazy mitering, because really all we're going to do is miter where the X is created by our score lines on the bottom of the 3.5 inch one. We're not going to miter the top. All right, and then let's fold and burnish on the score lines. So the way I'm doing this pocket is just in case you don't have a base piece of paper to go down. Well, it just resolves all issues. All right, I'm going to take my scoreboard and I'm going to have this. So I'm going to have the bottom side facing me and the side over to the side. And I'll put it with the tab facing to what would have been the top of the scoreboard and one of the tabs facing me. What we're going to be doing is adding glue to the inside of the tab, but just 1/2 inch. And then we'll add this other piece to it. Now, before you do that, make sure that this is going to fit without bubbling up. Now, there is a little bit of a bubble, but it's not terrible. I mean, if so, just bend this paper back manually, just a little. All right, so I'm going to add glue to the 1/2 inch on the inside of the tab of the larger piece. Then I'm going to put this inside, and you can use your scoreboard to determine if it's straight, just seeing if it's everything's lined up. Actually, I bet if we went this way, now you could see if it's straight, because it would be right against there, and I'll just burnish when I know we've got it straight. All right, that's all we'll need the scoreboard for. And I'll burnish real well. Burnish here. Okay, so now I'm just going to depends on how you add this to the paper, but I'm just going to take scissors and cut along just on the tab where where these two join. Just cut that. That'll mean they'll glue independently of each other, and when you add something into a pocket, it's not going to get hung up. I don't know, it just seems to work depending on how you put the paper on. But first I am going to add glue to the bottom tab. And I'll put that down, glue it, burnish it, add my tape. Whoops, so that's coming up. I did not open this up, and so now the glue is dry. It's one thing about this paper. It just, once it's on, but sometimes just doesn't want to stick. It's just this craft cardstock. And again, it's not what I usually use. And I probably won't get it again. I'll go ahead and add this tape. and burnish. But I like the idea of getting a 12 by 24 inch piece. And if they had had it in black, I would have loved to have the black, because I think their black paper is not nearly as thick as this. But that's okay. I mean, it works, and once you put the paper down and everything, it all sticks. I'm turning this upside down just so I can fold in those tabs. See, I've got tape sticking out. Okay, so there we have our double stacked pockets. We're not doing any features here on the back, the front of page 5, but we are going to do a belly band on the back of page 5. Let me show you that real quick. It's real simple. It is a wide belly band. In this case, I put a 4x4 cut apart. This belly band measures 3 inches. So if you had a 4x3 cut apart, you might want to adjust the size. You might want to, you might not. But that is what we're going to do for that. So let me show you how that goes. So for that, you'll need a piece that is 3 inches by 9, with the 9-inch side at the top of the scoreboard. Score at 1/2 inch and at 8.5. I mean, could it get any easier? I'll go ahead and miter on the corners here. Why not? Now, an alternate is you don't have to put a feature on this page. You could leave it blank. All right, and then simply add glue to our tabs. And then as far as the fact that this craft cardstock doesn't stick that well, I could go ahead and use some double-sided adhesive in addition to my liquid adhesive. But knowing that I'm putting paper on top of this that will also keep it down, I'm not that worried about it. If I was concerned about it, then I would definitely add 1/4 inch or even 1/8 inch double-sided adhesive to help keep that down. Okay, so that is it. Now the inside back cover is a pocket with a big flap. I always say this is where you can put all those other photos that didn't fit anywhere else in the book. In this case, I put an eyelet, and this leaf is a brad to keep this closed. You could put 2 of these circle closures, or you could use a magnet. But let's construct it first. And when we're decorating, we'll decide how we want to do it. So what you'll need for that is a piece 8 inches by 6 3/8. I want it a little smaller than 6.5 so it doesn't get hung up when the book itself closes. That's for the flap. The pocket is going to be 7.5 by 3. 7.5 by 3. Let's do that one first. 7.5 by 3. With the 7-inch side at the top, we'll score it at 1/2 at 7, and then rotate it and score it at 1/2 inch. And the larger piece with the 8-inch side at the top, we're going to score it at 1/2 inch. I'm also going to, at this point in the game, take my corner rounder and round the bottom. I just think it makes a nice look to the pocket. All right, let's fold and burnish on the score line. So you guys excited that we are just about done with constructing the book? Now, this video has gone, oops, let's miter. Oh. This video has gone on really long, so I'm not going to decorate it in this video. I will decorate it in another video, and it'll be a simple decorating. I'm not going to go crazy with it. All right, I'm going to miter here because we can. All right, bring in the book in. I'm going to turn the book on its side. So when I say I can also add score tape to make sure things stay down, so this is 1/8 inch score tape, which still gives me room to, it's 1/8 inch score tape that's coming off the roll wrong. It still gives me room to add liquid adhesive. So I'll put some down. In the center. And there. So that's just what I mean. So you have paper, if you have paper that just doesn't want to stick, then this is an alternative. You can add score tape. So this is 1/8 inch, as I said. You could also use 1/4 inch, but I like the 1/8 inch because it does give me room to add liquid adhesive, as I said. I'll add glue, not on top of that double-sided adhesive, but around it. I feel like if you add glue to the top of it, it just sits on the top. It doesn't do anything. All right, so I'm going to line this up to the right side of the book, so close to me. That's perfect. And I should have mitered before I peeled off the backing. I'll go ahead and add glue to this bottom tab. And of course, once you've made one of these books, feel free to make another one again, even if you use different paper. It would be great using Christmas paper. It would be great using birthday. I don't know, whatever you want. Winter. Winter's coming up next. That would be fun. All right, so I'm putting that down. I'll go ahead and add my tape. And then add glue to these tabs. All right, and there we go. So there is our mini album. All we have to do now is decorate it. So I want to thank you for joining along. I really would encourage you to please like this video. And if you have not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. It really would mean a lot to me. I'm hoping to hit 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. It's not a lot. It's just a number, but I know a lot of you watch the videos and I would really appreciate it. If you're looking for these mini albums, don't forget to check out my Etsy shop. And if you're looking for the cutting guide, that will be listed for a nominal fee in my coffee shop. Thank you so much for watching. Have a fabulous day.